gone snorkeling with Garibaldi's during their mating season, which is in the spring to the fall, you may have noticed that they are actually quite brave fish. They are not afraid to swim right up towards you and get in your face, especially if you get too close to their nest. I actually kind of experienced this the other day when I went snorkeling down at Bolokoya Cove. There was one Garibaldi that would not leave me alone. And they are very brave, which reminded scientists that were describing the species of Giuseppe Garibaldi and his followers in the Italian Revolution. They were known to all wear bright orange neckerchiefs to help signify the fact that they were a unified front instead of the normal, traditional Italian regalia. And so just like those very bold Italian soldiers, the very bold Garibaldi are known for their behaviors. Now Garibaldi are pretty interesting. I said that they make nests to lay their eggs, kind of similar to what an anemone fish or a clownfish would do. The male Garibaldi will clean out a section of the rocks of every type of seaweed except for a specific red algae. And once it's perfectly cleaned out, he will start to invite females over to lay their eggs inside. He can have quite a few females laying their eggs inside before he fertilizes all the eggs. Now, if he has a full nest, but then an even more desirable female starts to come along, and he may want to invite her to lay eggs inside, he will actually eat the eggs of the other females to make room for her eggs. It's a pretty intense process. It looks like Scott is going up to grab the food. He's going to be doing the feeding today. And as soon as the food enters the water, you're going to notice that the fish become much more active. Many of these fish are going to be sight-based predators, so seeing things to catch their food, but others will use their sense of smell, which is especially important in an area like a kelp forest, which can be quite dark at the very base of the kelp forest. Here he comes with that food, so here come all of those hungry fish. Now we have a 2-part bucket system in here that allows us to make sure that all the animals that are inside are going to have a food to eat. So he's starting with some scatter feeding where he really just opens the bucket and lets the food fly out. Scatter feeding is really great when you have a large variety of animals or types of animals, all with different sized mouths. Many of the fish that are in here, and you can see that he also has some whole pieces or larger cut up pieces of fish for the larger animals, like this sheephead, which has the dark head, the pink belly, and then the dark tail. He's going to specifically offer that fish a piece of food, which we call target feeding. Now, scatter feeding is a really great way to get a lot of the fish out of the way and make sure that they can choose the right food that is, or the food that's right for their mouths. Since most of these animals do not have teeth the way that we do, they aren't going to be able to chew their food up and instead are going to be swallowing it whole. The food that we're offering these animals is going to be pretty diverse. It'll include things, oh, there goes a sheephead and just took a whole fish. The sheephead does have teeth, especially the male, which is the one that we're seeing right there. The males are very distinctive with that dark head, pink belly, and dark tail. We also have a female on exhibit here. I'll try and point her out when I see her. She's going to be much more of a muted pinkish gray color all the way across and much smaller, but she will still have that distinctive white chin on the bottom. And the males do have teeth, which is very helpful when they're eating their favorite food, which is going to be sea urchins. They use those teeth to pull the sea urchins off the rocks and then break them into smaller pieces. The females will also eat sea urchins, but they don't have any teeth, so they have been observed using rocks to break open the urchins and what's inside. Now this little friend right here is a broomtail grouper. It might look similar to the giant black sea bass, but it does have a slightly different coloration, and they tend to be a little bit silly. They just kind of like to sit right in front of the food and then ignore the food being offered to it. Now you can really see how active the fish become. Here comes that giant, or that sheep's head, and we're offering it a whole squid today. Oh, half moon to it instead. That's a half moon right there. They are called that because of the kind of moon-like or like crescent moon-like shape of the gray spot on their side. We have a lot of different types of fish in here. There we go, here it goes. You can kind of see his big teeth when he opens his mouth. They look kind of crazy. Now what's interesting about sheep's head is that they are all born female. Actually, many different types of fish in the ocean go through this process. Here comes a shark that he's feeding right now. There's a swell shark. They are not aggressive, so that's why he can handle it like that. They actually have very small teeth on the underside of their mouth, which they use for grabbing on and crushing through hard prey. Today it looks like this swell shark is going to offer an entire fillet of fish. And these sharks are pretty lazy. They are nocturnal, and at nighttime they'll become more active. They tend to live in the deeper waters off the kelp forest, so the base of the kelp forest and into the deeper canyons around it. One of the coolest things about soil sharks, in my opinion, is that if you were to go out to the kelp forest with black light, you shone it on a soil shark, it would glow bright green in a process called biofluorescence. We're not entirely, oh, here comes the sea bass. She took it. Yay, she took it. You can see how big that mouth opens. Now, we're not entirely sure why soil sharks glow green, although it could be a way for them to see each other because their coloration is so cryptic, or it perfectly blends in with their surroundings on the mossy, dark rocks of the kelp forest and the surrounding canyons. So it might be a way for them to see each other when it comes to mating season. There's another shark kind of coming in from the back right now. It's a much darker shark. It has 2 white spines on its back. I don't know if y'all can see it from your angle. Hopefully Scott will hold it up for us to see. That shark, oh, it's reaching its head in the bucket right now. That shark is the horn shark. We just offered it a piece of food. You can see that she has a darker body and dark spots. Horn sharks are more commonly found in our rocky reef area closer to shore and the kelp forest. I've seen them when I've gone diving at Mission Bay. And they're pretty cool because they have a very distinctive type of egg. Both of the sharks that are on exhibit here, they are egg-laying sharks. Here comes that swell shark again. I think they're so cute. Both of these sharks lay eggs. Swell sharks lay the kind of more commonly shaped mermaid's purse egg, which is going to be like long and flat with long tendrils on either side to help them to wind up in the kelp. Oh, here comes a moray eel. Now these guys are quite silly looking. And they are some of the older fish that we have on exhibit. They've been here for many decades. Look at that. He's really showing off how good his very skinny body and long head are at reaching into tight spaces, which is where he'll live in the rocks below. You can see how good she is at suctioning in that food hole. Now, moray eels, like the one that is off trying to grab some fish from the bucket right now, they are commonly going to be found wrapped up in the kelp or in the rocks below the kelp. They often will live in caves. Oh my goodness, that's so sad. This moray eel, most of the eels in here actually are almost blind because they're older, but they don't have great eyesight as young ones either because they are mostly scent predators. She is very hungry today. We're very lucky to see her so active. Now you'll notice that the sea bass has some black spots on her body. She can actually flash different colors as a form of communication and warning. So if she was like really perturbed for some reason, she would flash bright white. It's quite an interesting sight to see. Oh my goodness. That sargo is really, really, I don't know if they thought they could actually eat that whole thing. That's very bold. That's a whole fillet of mackerel, it looks like, and all the fish are going to start grabbing off pieces of it. The darker gray fish with the white spots that are really going for that piece of fish right now, those are opal eyes. They're a really common fish in our local area. And then the kelp bass went for another big pull of it. Now, many of these fish, including the opal eye, they are actually omnivores. They don't just rely on the fish that we feed them. They will also eat the algae that grows on the rocks. So we're just kind of supplementing their diet. But other fish in here are entirely carnivorous, like the moray eel. We got 2 eels swimming up here now. Now, moray eels are an interesting type of fish. You might notice that they have no fins, so they're not great swimmers. Look at that long body reaching right inside their That's exactly what they'll do in the wild, reaching into caves and crevices to find animals like crabs and small octopuses. They'll also eat fish like small kelp bass and Garibaldi if they can get the chance. They're ambush predators. But because of their body being so long and because they live in tight spaces like caves, they don't have the ability to suction in their food the way these other fish are. So the way that they are going to be eating their food is actually pulling it into their mouths. Now, pulling their food into their mouths is a pretty hard process. So they actually have 2 sets of jaws. Now, if you are getting ready for the spooky season and if you've watched the movie Predator or Alien recently, that is where they got the idea for their animals, their moray eel, because if you were to open up their mouth, you would see a set of teeth or oral teeth right inside their mouth for grabbing their food. And if you look deeper in their jaw or their throat, they have a second set of teeth, a pharyngeal jaw that reaches up, grabs the food, and pulls it deeper into their throat so they can swallow it whole. Pretty crazy. If you ever go diving around here, make sure you don't put your hands inside a cave that you can't see well into because they do not let go once they get a bite of their food. Now, moray eels, they're unique for a whole bunch of reasons, apart from the fact they have no fins and the fact that they have 2 sets of jaws. They also don't have scales on their skin the way that the other fish in here do. Instead, their body's kind of covered in a thick mucousy layer to protect itself. They are definitely interesting critters. have a lot of activity in the tank right now as the food starts to kind of filter through the water. Many of these animals will start to scavenge off the bits that are laying on the floor at this point. There's also a very small shark that's kind of swimming up at the front. I know you won't be able to see it if you're sitting down, but we have a very small swell shark in here. It's one of the babies. I'm hoping that Scott will pick it up because it's about half the size of the adult swell sharks in here. Because these sharks reproduce by laying eggs, we often will get baby sharks in here if we let the eggs come to term. We're going to be able to see some unhatched or unfertilized shark eggs today if you go to our tide pool plaza. You'll also be able to touch one of our horn sharks, one of our juveniles. Great question. She's asking how long these eggs will incubate before hatching. The parents actually don't watch over the eggs. Instead, they just hang them on the kelp. For the swell shark, they hang them on the kelp, and it takes about 9 months for the baby to hatch inside, 9 to 12 months. The egg case will, once it hatches, the baby shark will only be a few inches long, and then it'll swim out on its own. Is that all the baby? Yes, it is. Look how small. So a lot smaller than the other sharks you've seen so far today. Not a little bit darker in color too, how interesting. Now with the horn shark, the other shark that we saw in here, the darker colored one with the spines on its back, that incubation will be closer to 7 months long. And they will press their corkscrew-shaped eggs in between the rocky crevices and let them incubate on their own there. Now, while our feeding has continued, and I've mentioned quite a few of the fish in here, I wanted to turn it to y'all and see if you had any questions about the animals we've seen so far or about the kelp forest. If you have any questions, just raise your hand. I'm happy to answer anything. Well, one of my favorite animals that are on this exhibit is a fish called the giant kelp fish. I saw it a little bit at the very beginning of my talk, but I didn't want to get derailed, so I didn't point it out. But the giant kelp fish literally looks like a single blade of kelp. It's very elongated, and its body perfectly mimics the shape of the kelp and its coloration. It even has small clear pieces in its fins that mimic bites taken out of the kelp by small animals. So I like to look for it. If you see a kelp-shaped fish swimming around, oh my gosh, Kim pointed it out for me. Where is it? It's behind this one. I can see it. Oh, there it is. You can kind of see it poking out from the kelp behind Scott's head. It's coming up for food. Oh my gosh. I completely choreographed that. That is a huge piece of fish for such a small fish. But you can see how well its body blends in with the kelp around it. They actually come in different colors too, depending on which part of the kelp forest they live in. This is like the brown morph of the kelp fish. They also come in a reddish color if they're living around red algae, and a green color if they're living around green algae. Very impressive coloration. And they are meat eaters. They usually eat small animals that live on the kelp, so I'm impressed that it took such a large piece of fish. Now we are almost done with our feeding here today. The caretakers in the tank are going to continue offering food to some of the animals that may have been a little bit more shy, and they'll remain in the tank until the feeding is completed and the cleaning is done. While they're in there, I definitely encourage y'all to wave hello and goodbye before you leave, or you can take a picture with the divers because they are very photogenic. They're really good at giving fist bumps under the water, even playing rock, paper, scissors. But with our last few minutes together, I did want to take a moment to thank you all for joining us here at the aquarium for this feeding. It's a really awesome experience that we get to see how much work goes into taking care of the animals here at the aquarium. It's a huge team of people that take care of all the animals that you've seen so far today, and all the amazing care and conservation that we've offered to our animals here at the aquarium is funded by your ticket sales. So thank you so much for joining us. I did also want to encourage y'all to try and find out where a kelp forest is near you if you're visiting San Diego next time you're around here or even today. Try and find a place where you can see the kelp forest in the wild. If you go kayaking or paddleboarding, or even if you're feeling brave enough to try diving in the kelp forest, make sure you wear a wetsuit because it's quite cold. But it's even more magical to see it in real life. I was just telling my friend Kim over there that I went diving at the cove recently. It's not entirely a kelp forest, but there's lots of kelp that grows there. I saw almost all the animals that live in this tank out in the wild for myself. It's really magical to see it with your own eyes. It becomes much more real, and and encourage us to want to protect it, which is important because kelp forests around the world do need our help, especially with warming ocean temperatures threatening the growth of kelp. Now here at the Birch Aquarium and at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography, we are fighting the deforestation of kelp forests and the loss of kelp due to warming ocean temperatures by growing strains of kelp which are more resistant to warm water. Similar to how you may have heard of drought-resistant crops that need less water to grow, our kelp that we're growing here needs warmer water to thrive. And so hopefully as we plant this out into our local kelp forests, they'll continue to thrive as the years go on and leave a really intact kelp forest for all of us to enjoy, even if we just go diving in it, or if we just appreciate having a healthy ocean ecosystem in our backyard. Now, if you folks have any further questions about the kelp forest or the dive that you saw today, please feel free to find me over here. Once again, my name is Grace, and I'm very happy to have you all here today and happy to answer any questions that you might have. If not, I hope that you enjoy the rest of your visit here at the Birch Aquarium. Have a lovely rest of your Sunday. Thank you so much.
Thank you.